Please, honey, Grandma really needs you right now. She's not feeling well at all. My mother's voice crackled through the phone, laden with an urgency that, in hindsight, I recognize as entirely fabricated. I was sitting in my cozy Indianapolis apartment, surrounded by neatly packed suitcases, my heart buzzing with anticipation for our long-awaited family cruise. The excitement that had been building for weeks began to deflate, replaced by a gnawing worry that tightened my chest. Of course, I'll stay, I replied without a moment's hesitation, my voice steady despite the sinking feeling in my gut. The cruise isn't important if Grandma needs help. Those words, spoken with such conviction, would soon return to haunt me, their bitter irony unfolding within mere hours. My name is Tara Smith, and at 28 years old, I've always strived to be the dependable daughter, the one who steps up when the family needs her most. That unwavering commitment to my loved ones was about to be tested in ways I could never have anticipated. For months, I had been eagerly preparing for this cruise, our first true family vacation in years. It was meant to be a joyous reunion, bringing together my parents, my younger sister Emma, and a handful of extended relatives. I had meticulously planned my time off from work, scoured stores for the perfect summer wardrobe, and even splurged on a new swimsuit, envisioning lazy days by the ship's pool. But when my mother's call came, claiming Grandma was hospitalized, I didn't hesitate to abandon those plans, my loyalty to family overriding all else. That evening, as I drove toward the hospital, my phone vibrated with a notification that stopped my heart. Emma had posted on social media, and the image that loaded on my screen shattered my world. There, on the deck of the cruise ship, stood my entire family, Mom, Dad, Emma, my aunts, and uncles, beaming with wide smiles, champagne glasses raised in a celebratory toast. The caption read, "Best vacation ever. So blessed to have such an amazing family. #cruise life, #family time." My hands trembled as I pulled over to the side of the road, staring in disbelief at the photo. They had lied to me. They had deliberately excluded me from the family vacation, using my beloved grandmother as a cruel pretext. When I arrived at the hospital, my worst fears were confirmed. There was no record of my grandmother being admitted. My calls to my parents went straight to voicemail, and within minutes of seeing Emma's post, I discovered she had blocked me on social media. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs and leaving me gasping for breath. Tears blurred my vision as I drove to Grandma's house, desperate for answers. To my surprise, her porch light glowed warmly, and when I knocked, she opened the door, looking perfectly healthy and utterly perplexed by my distraught appearance. "Tara, sweetheart, what's wrong?" she asked, pulling me into a comforting embrace. The familiar scent of her lavender perfume enveloped me, triggering a fresh wave of tears. As we settled in her cozy living room, surrounded by the familiar trinkets and framed photos of our family, I poured out the painful truth, the cruise, the lies, and the social media post that had exposed their deception. "I don't understand," I said, wiping my eyes with the back of my hand. "Why would they do this to me? Why lie about you being sick?" Grandma's face darkened with a mix of disappointment and quiet anger. She had always treated Emma and me with equal love and care, but my parents were another matter entirely. Growing up in Indianapolis, I had watched them consistently favor my sister. When Emma wanted dance lessons, they miraculously found the money. When I needed help with college tuition, I was left to navigate loans on my own. I thought of the countless times I had visited Grandma, helping with groceries, driving her to appointments, or simply sitting together, reminiscing over old photo albums. Emma, by contrast, rarely visited unless she needed something, usually money, yet she remained the golden child in our parents' eyes. "Your mother called me last week," Grandma revealed, her voice tight with indignation. "She asked me to play along if you came by, to pretend I had been in the hospital. I refused, of course. I had no idea they would go through with this scheme." The cruise tickets hadn't been cheap, nearly $2,000 per person for a week-long Caribbean adventure. I had saved diligently for months, picking up extra shifts at the accounting firm where I worked to afford my spot. Now, I wondered if my ticket money had been used to fund someone else's luxury cabin or extravagant excursion. You know what hurts the most? I said, staring at my clasped hands, my voice barely above a whisper. They didn't even need such an elaborate excuse. They could have just told me they didn't want me there. Instead, they used you, knowing how much I love you, to manipulate me. Grandma reached for my hand, her grip surprisingly firm for her age. Sometimes, people show you exactly who they are, even when they think they're hiding it, she said, her voice carrying the weight of hard-earned wisdom. The question is, what are you going to do with that knowledge? I looked into her eyes and saw a fierce determination, a spark that hinted at plans she had yet to reveal. Little did I know, Grandma had been observing our family's dynamics far more closely than any of us realized, and she was prepared to take action. As we sat together, my phone buzzed again, this time with a group text from my cousin Leah, who was unaware I had been excluded from the cruise. She had sent vacation photos to the family group chat, not realizing I wasn't supposed to see them. My heart sank as I scrolled through the images. Emma wearing the sundress I had helped her choose, my parents lounging by the pool with cocktails in hand, and the entire family gathered for formal dinner, all dressed up and laughing. But one detail caught my eye, my mother's diamond necklace, the one Grandma had given her years ago, meant to be passed down to both Emma and me on our 30th birthdays. She gave it to Emma already, didn't she? I asked, showing Grandma the photo, my voice trembling with hurt. Even though I'm the older one, even though we were supposed to share it. Grandma leaned forward, her expression hardening as she studied the image. That necklace has been in our family for 3 generations, she said quietly. Your great-grandmother split her jewelry equally between her daughters. That's why I gave it to your mother with specific instructions. Then, she revealed a truth that sent a chill through me. The cruise hadn't been funded by my parents' money. 2 months earlier, Grandma had given them $15,000 to plan a family vacation, explicitly stating it was for all of us. Instead, they had used my portion to upgrade their own cabins and book extra excursions, cutting me out entirely. I've been watching, Grandma continued, her voice heavy with sorrow and resolve. For years, I've seen how they treat you differently. I kept hoping they would change, that they would see the unfairness of their actions, but this is the last straw. She stood and walked to her desk, retrieving a thick manila envelope. I wasn't going to show you this yet, but you need to know, she said, handing it to me. Inside were bank statements, photos, emails, and handwritten notes spanning years, meticulously documenting every instance of favoritism, every time my parents had prioritized Emma, every time they had taken advantage of my kindness, every penny they had spent unequally between us. My hands shook as I read through the evidence. The pattern of favoritism wasn't just a figment of my imagination. It was calculated, consistent, and deliberate. But why? I whispered, the weight of years of gaslighting and denial crashing down around me. Why did they always make me feel like I was imagining it? Grandma's eyes flashed with a resolve I had never seen before. Because that's what people do when they know they're wrong, she said. They try to make you doubt yourself. But not anymore, Tara. Not anymore. The cruise was scheduled to last 7 days. The next morning, as I sat in my Indianapolis apartment, poring over Grandma's documentation, my phone lit up with a text from Emma. Mom said you're spreading lies about us. Why can't you just be happy for once instead of trying to ruin everything? The audacity of her words ignited a fire within me. They were still trying to paint me as the villain, even after their betrayal. Instead of responding to Emma, I did something I had never dared before. I shared the truth publicly. On social media, I wrote, "Funny how being lied to about my grandmother's hospitalization, just so my family could exclude me from a vacation, somehow makes me the problem. Even funnier how the cruise was paid for with money meant to include me." I attached Emma's best vacation ever photo, letting the truth speak for itself. Within minutes, my post exploded with reactions. Friends and family who had known us for years expressed shock and outrage. Cousins who hadn't known the full story began messaging me privately, sharing their own observations of the unequal treatment I had endured. Then my father called. I almost didn't answer, but Grandma's words echoed in my mind. Stand your ground. You've done nothing wrong. As I pressed the phone to my ear, I braced myself for what was to come, knowing that this moment would define the future of my relationship with my family. Take down that post immediately, my father demanded, his voice icy, and clipped through the phone. You're embarrassing this family. My grip tightened on the device, anger surging through me. No, Dad. You embarrassed this family when you lied about Grandma being sick, when you took her money meant for all of us, and used it to exclude me. My words trembled with the weight of years of suppressed hurt. That's not how it happened, he argued, his tone defensive. We needed a break from your constant. My constant what, Dad? I cut in, my voice rising. My constant reliability? My constant help with Grandma? My constant effort to be part of this family despite how you treat me. The line fell silent, the pause heavy with unspoken truths. When he spoke again, his voice had shifted, low and menacing. If you don't take down that post and apologize publicly for your lies, you'll regret it. You have no idea what's at stake here. A chill ran down my spine. Are you threatening me? I asked, my heart pounding. I'm warning you, he said. Your mother and I have protected you all these years, kept certain things from you. If you want to play this game, fine. But remember, you're not the only one who can tell stories. The call ended abruptly, leaving me shaken, my mind racing. What had they protected me from? What stories could they possibly tell? I dialed Grandma immediately, my voice trembling as I recounted the conversation. They're trying to scare me, I said. Dad says they've been protecting me from something, but he wouldn't say what. Grandma was quiet for a long moment, her silence heavy with deliberation. Go to your email, she finally said, her tone resolute. I'm sending you something. It's time you knew everything. As I opened my laptop, my hands trembling with anticipation, I realized this was far bigger than a family cruise. Whatever was in that email would upend my world, and judging by Grandma's steely determination, my parents had every reason to fear what I might uncover. When the email arrived, my breath caught in my throat. Attached was a scanned document dated 25 years ago, a trust agreement that made my heart race. My maternal grandfather, before his passing, had established a substantial fortune to be divided equally among his grandchildren when they turned 30. The trust was valued at over $2 million. But there was more. A series of bank statements revealed regular withdrawals from the trust over the years. The funds had been used to pay for Emma's dance lessons, her private school education, her college tuition, and even her lavish recent wedding, all drawn from what was rightfully my share. They've been stealing from you since you were 3 years old, Grandma explained over the phone, her voice thick with indignation. Your mother convinced the trustee, her brother Michael, to grant her early access to your portion, claiming it was for your benefit. But as you can see, they spent it all on Emma. I sat back, my voice hollow as the reality sank in. It's all gone, isn't it? The numbers were staggering. Over $500,000 siphoned from my trust fund while I had worked multiple jobs, scrimping and saving to put myself through college. Just then, another email arrived, this time from my Uncle Michael. Tara, I can't keep quiet anymore, he wrote. What they did with the cruise money was the last straw. I've attached documentation of every withdrawal they made from your trust. I'm so sorry. I should have stopped them years ago. The attached files painted an even darker picture. My parents hadn't just spent my trust fund on Emma. They had been embezzling money for themselves, too. The cruise was merely the latest chapter in their long-running scheme. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked Grandma, struggling to process the magnitude of their betrayal. I only discovered the extent of it recently, she replied, her voice heavy with regret. When I confronted your mother last month, she swore they'd pay it all back. That's when I gave them the cruise money. It was a test, Tara. I wanted to see if they'd finally do the right thing. And they failed spectacularly. Spectacularly, I echoed bitterly, my mind reeling. Yes, Grandma said, her tone resolute, but their failure has given us exactly what we need. Proof. Your Uncle Michael has agreed to testify about their manipulation of the trust. Combined with my documentation and the cruise incident, we can take legal action. A surge of determination replaced my shock. We can do more than that, I said, my voice steadying. Better, Grandma replied, and I could hear the steel in her voice. We can make sure they never hurt you again. Check the second attachment in my email. I clicked it open and gasped. It was Grandma's will, recently updated. She had named me the sole heir to her estate, which I now learned included controlling interest in the family company where my father served as CEO. They're about to discover, Grandma said firmly, that their actions have consequences. The next morning, I met Uncle Michael at a quiet cafe in downtown Indianapolis. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his hands trembled slightly as he handed me a thick folder. These are copies of every document, every transaction, he said softly. I've already sent everything to the family attorney. Your parents, they're going to try to fight this, Tara. They've already called me 6 times since I sent that email. What are they saying? I asked, flipping through the damning evidence of years of financial manipulation. They're claiming it was all done with your best interests in mind, that they were protecting you from having too much money too young, he said, shaking his head in disgust. But I found something else, something they don't know I know about. He slid another document across the table, this one showing a series of recent transfers to an offshore account. They're planning to leave the country, Tara, he said gravely. They've been moving money around, preparing for something. The cruise wasn't just a vacation, it was a test run to check if their passports would raise any red flags. My blood ran cold. They're planning to run with what's left of my trust fund, I said, the pieces falling into place. Yes, he confirmed, and Emma's involved. She's been helping them set up accounts in her name to hide the money. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from Emma. I know what you're doing. You've always been jealous of me, and now you're trying to ruin everything. Well, guess what? You're too late. By the time you figure it out, we'll be gone, and you'll have nothing. I showed the text to Uncle Michael, whose face paled. They're moving faster than I thought, he said. We need to act now. I called Grandma immediately, and she answered on the first ring, as if she'd been waiting. They're at the family company right now, she said without preamble. Your father's cleaning out his office. Security just called me. Can they stop him? I asked, my heart racing.
Better, she said.
I've already called the police and the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. They're on their way. But, Tara, she paused, her voice firm. You need to get down there. You're the controlling shareholder now. The paperwork was filed first thing this morning. I stood, my chair scraping against the floor. They don't know that yet, do they? No, she said, and that's our advantage. Get there before they can destroy any evidence. Uncle Michael's documentation proves the theft, but there might be more we don't know about. As I rushed to my car, another text arrived, this time from my mother. You ungrateful child. After everything we've done for you, you'll regret this. For the first time, their threats didn't frighten me. I had the truth on my side, and more importantly, I had nothing left to lose. I arrived at the family company's headquarters just as my parents emerged from the building, carrying boxes from my father's office. Emma was with them, her nervous glances darting around as if expecting trouble. Their faces froze when they saw me, the weight of their secrets exposed in their widened eyes. My parents and Emma froze as I stepped out of my car, the gravel crunching under my boots in the tense silence of the company parking lot. My father's eyes widened, betraying a flicker of fear beneath his polished CEO facade. What are you doing here? He demanded, his voice straining to maintain its usual authority, but the tremor in it was unmistakable. I met his gaze, my own steady and unflinching. Funny, I was about to ask you the same thing, I replied calmly, my words cutting through the crisp morning air. Especially since you're removing items from my company without authorization. Emma scoffed, her nervous laughter sharp and brittle. Your company?
What are you talking about?
I held up my phone, the screen displaying the freshly filed ownership documents, the ink of their truth still metaphorical in its newness. Grandma transferred her controlling shares to me this morning, I said, my voice firm. As the new majority shareholder, I'm very interested in those boxes you're carrying. Would they happen to contain evidence of what you did with my trust fund?" My mother's face drained of color, her hands clutching the box in her arms as if it could shield her from the consequences closing in. Behind them, the wail of sirens pierced the air as police cars screeched into the parking lot, their lights casting red and blue flashes across the building's glass facade. Unmarked vehicles followed, and FBI agents in dark suits emerged, their movements precise and purposeful. In the distance, I spotted Uncle Michael's car pulling in, with Grandma in the passenger seat, her expression resolute through the windshield. My mother's voice broke as she stepped forward, desperation etching lines into her face. "You don't understand, Tara," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "Everything we did was for this family." "No," I corrected, my tone unwavering, each word a release of years of suppressed pain. "Everything you did was for Emma. And now you were planning to run away with what's left of my money." I turned to my sister, whose nervous fidgeting had stopped, her eyes darting between me and the approaching agents. "Did you enjoy the cruise, Emma?" I asked, my voice quiet but piercing. "Was it worth it?" Emma's face crumpled, and she burst into tears, her sobs echoing in the charged atmosphere. My father reached for her, trying to pull her behind him, but it was too late. The truth, like the agents now closing in, had finally caught up with them. 3 months later, I sat in Grandma's garden in Indianapolis, the autumn leaves drifting lazily to the ground in a cascade of crimson and gold. The morning air was cool, scented with the earthy richness of fall, and we shared our ritual of morning coffee, the warmth of the mugs grounding us in the moment. The FBI's investigation had unearthed a web of deceit far beyond what we'd imagined. My parents hadn't just embezzled from my trust fund, they had siphoned funds from the company's accounts, defrauding shareholders and jeoparding a firestorm of federal charges. Civil lawsuits from outraged investors were piling up, each one a brick in the wall of their unraveling legacy. Emma, ever the pragmatist, had struck a deal with prosecutors, agreeing to testify against our parents in exchange for immunity. She had fled to Minnesota, stripped of the financial safety net our parents had always provided. Her last message to me was a lengthy apology, filled with remorse and explanations, but the words felt hollow, unable to mend the deep wounds her complicity had carved. Some betrayals, I had learned, run too deep for simple apologies to heal, their scars a permanent reminder of trust shattered. "You know," Grandma said, her voice soft as she sipped her coffee, her eyes tracing the dance of leaves in the breeze, "your grandfather would be proud of how you handled everything. He always said money reveals people's true characters." I nodded, my thoughts drifting to the changes I had spearheaded at the company. As its new leader, I had established a scholarship program for employees' children, ensuring opportunities for those who, like me, had once struggled to afford their dreams. I had also implemented a transparent financial system, rooting out the secrecy that had enabled my parents' schemes. Under my stewardship, the business was thriving, its foundation now built on integrity rather than deception. "I never wanted any of this," I admitted, my voice quiet as I stared into the steam rising from my coffee. "I just wanted to be treated fairly." Grandma reached over, her hand warm and steady as she squeezed mine, her touch a lifeline through the storm of the past months. "Sometimes," she said, her eyes bright with wisdom, "life's greatest blessings come disguised as its greatest challenges. You've turned their betrayal into something positive, Tara. That's a strength few possess." Her words settled over me like a comforting blanket, soothing the raw edges of my heart. She was right. The cruise my family had taken without me, the one I had once mourned as a lost chance for connection, hadn't been the vacation of a lifetime after all. It had been the catalyst for their downfall, the spark that ignited the truth and set me free. In its wake, I had discovered my strength, my purpose, and, most importantly, my self-worth. As the autumn leaves continued to fall, I felt a quiet resolve take root within me, a certainty that, no matter what lay ahead, I was ready to face it, not as the overlooked daughter, but as the architect of my own future. Please feel free to comment below if you liked this. Remember to like and subscribers for more.